The desert stretched endlessly under the burning sun. Waves of heat rolled across the dunes, making the horizon shimmer like flowing water. Milo pulled his scarf tighter around his neck and raised a hand to block the glare. He was not a soldier, not a treasure hunter, just a young explorer who loved forgotten places. His boots sank into the sand as he studied the readings on his scanner. The machine kept flashing strange signals from beneath the ground. Behind him, Nora wiped dust from her goggles and frowned. "Are you sure this is the right spot?" she asked. Her voice was tired from hours of walking. Milo smiled faintly. "The readings don't lie. Something is here, hidden under the dunes. We just have to dig a little deeper." The rest of the small team followed slowly. They were colonists and volunteers who had agreed to help Milo with his expedition. Most of them were curious, but also cautious. The desert was known for storms, sinkholes, and dangerous creatures that wandered the night. Still, there was something different about this area. Even without scanners, everyone could feel a strange weight in the air, as if the land itself carried memories too heavy to vanish. By late afternoon, the team uncovered the top of a massive stone structure buried under sand. The surface was carved with sharp lines that formed symbols no one could read. Time had eroded the edges, yet the markings still glowed faintly as the sun hit them. One of the colonists, an older man named Bryn, stepped back nervously. "This place should have stayed buried," he muttered. "The locals whisper about a cursed tomb. They say an ancient king was buried here, and anyone who disturbs him brings death." Milo crouched beside the stone, brushing away the sand with careful strokes. He traced a carving of a circle with lines spreading outward like a sun. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from excitement. "Every legend begins with fear," he said. "But legends are built on something real. What if this king was not just a story?" Bryn shook his head. "Stories keep people alive. Some doors are meant to stay closed." Nora stepped closer, her eyes locked on the glowing carvings. She was usually cautious, but now curiosity burned in her expression. "Look at these lines. They're not just decorations. They look like a kind of code or map. Maybe this isn't just a tomb. Maybe it's something else." The sun began to sink, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. The team worked quickly, pushing sand aside until the outline of a great door was revealed. The entrance was taller than three men standing together and sealed with heavy stone slabs. Across its surface, more symbols ran in rows like a written history waiting to be read. As the desert grew cooler, a low wind whistled through the dunes, carrying the scent of old dust and dry stone. The sound seemed almost like whispers. Some of the colonists backed away, muttering that the curse was real. But Milo pressed his hand against the stone. The surface was cold, much colder than the desert air should allow. His skin tingled as if the stone itself was alive. Nora noticed his expression. "What do you feel?" she asked. "Energy," Milo replied softly. "Like the stone is awake." The team hesitated, torn between fear and discovery. Finally, Milo gave the order. "We came here to uncover the truth. If this door leads to danger, then at least we'll know what the legends are hiding. If it leads to knowledge, then humanity will gain something priceless." Together they set up tools to shift the slab. The work was heavy, the stone groaning with each movement, but little by little the seal gave way. Dust rained down, and the air grew colder still. When the final stone slid aside, a dark passage opened before them, leading deep into the earth. The entrance seemed to breathe, sending out a slow current of air that smelled of old stone and something else, something sharp, metallic, almost electric. The crystals embedded in the carvings along the walls flickered with faint light as if waking from a long sleep. Nora stepped closer, her voice quiet. "It's not just a tomb. Look at the walls. They're glowing." Milo's eyes shone with wonder. "This is no ordinary ruin. We've found something ancient, something powerful. The group lit their lamps, their beams cutting through the thick shadows. Step by step, they entered the passage. The sound of their boots echoed against the walls, mixing with the low hum that seemed to come from the stone itself. Every surface was covered with carvings, showing tall figures with crowns of fire, cities that floated above the ground, and strange beasts bowing before a single king. Milo slowed his pace, staring at a carving of the crowned figure. The king's eyes were inlaid with crystal, and under the light, it almost looked as if they glowed. He felt the gaze following him, heavy and cold. For the first time that day, his excitement was mixed with unease. At last, they reached a wide chamber. The ceiling arched high above them, held by pillars carved into the shapes of armored warriors. In the center stood a sealed sarcophagus wrapped in bands of metal that looked like roots, twisting and binding the stone lid. The air was so heavy it was hard to breathe. The colonists stopped at the edge of the chamber, whispering prayers. Nora's hand tightened on her lamp. "Milo," she said softly, "are you sure about this?" Milo took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the sarcophagus. "We came here for answers," he whispered back. "And the answers are waiting inside." The chamber grew silent, as if the tomb itself was listening. The chamber was larger than anyone expected. The flickering light of the lamps danced across walls covered in carvings. Every surface told a story, but none of the explorers could fully understand it. The pictures showed a tall figure seated on a throne, his crown shaped like flames. Around him stood not only humans, but also strange creatures with long arms and shining eyes. Nora stepped closer to one of the walls and brushed away dust. "Look at this," she whispered. The image showed a group of humans kneeling beside alien figures. Both bowed before the crowned king, as if they were his loyal subjects. "This king ruled not just people, but different worlds," she added, her voice trembling. Milo studied the carvings with wide eyes. "If humans are here, then this story must be older than our history on this planet. This could mean humans were brought across the stars long ago. Maybe this king knew us before we even knew ourselves." The others murmured nervously. For them, this was no longer a simple expedition. It felt as if they had stepped into something far greater. The group slowly circled the chamber until they reached the center again. The sarcophagus loomed over them, tall and heavy, wrapped in bands of metal that twisted like roots. Strange symbols pulsed faintly across the surface. Every time Milo's lamplight struck the bands, they glimmered as if alive. Bryn, the older colonist, backed away. "I told you. This is not just stone. This is a prison. Something dangerous sleeps here, and you are trying to wake it?" Nora leaned closer to the sarcophagus. Her fingers hovered over the strange symbols, but she did not touch them. "These markings," she said, "they're not just decoration. They look like seals. Someone wanted to make sure this king never rose again." Milo crouched, examining the carvings more carefully. He felt the air grow colder with each passing moment. "If he was sealed away," Milo said slowly, "then he must have been powerful. But was he dangerous, or simply feared?" As if answering, the chamber shuddered. A deep vibration rose through the floor, rattling their tools. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The colonists gasped and held onto one another. Then, without warning, a whisper filled the air. It was not a normal sound, but something that touched their minds directly. The voice was deep, echoing, and filled with authority. "You dare to walk in my silence," the voice said. Every person froze. Some dropped their lamps in fear. The words were in a tongue none of them knew, yet each one understood it clearly in their own mind. Nora's face went pale. "We all heard that, didn't we?" Milo's heart pounded, but instead of running, he stepped closer to the sarcophagus. "Who are you?" he asked aloud, though his voice shook. The whisper came again, stronger this time. I am the one forgotten. I am the king who bound the stars. And now, you disturb my rest. The chamber darkened as the glow from the wall carvings flared to life. The eyes of the figures in the murals lit up like fire, casting shadows that moved as if alive. The explorers huddled together, unsure if the stone images would step from the walls. Bryn shouted, "We must leave now. This is not discovery. This is doom." But the door they had entered was no longer visible. The shadows covered the entrance, making it seem as though the tomb itself had closed around them. Nora grabbed Milo's arm. "Do something. Say something. He's listening to you." Milo swallowed hard. He looked at the sealed sarcophagus and raised his voice. "We are not your enemies. We are seekers of knowledge. If you are the king, then tell us why you remain here." For a moment, only silence answered. Then the whisper returned, heavy with sorrow. "I remain because the worlds betrayed me. I remain because my curse holds me still. I remain because only the worthy may wake me." The air thickened, making it hard to breathe. Milo stumbled, but the strange pull of the voice kept him standing. He could feel it pressing against his mind, searching his thoughts. Images flashed before his eyes: armies marching across alien skies, towers of crystal burning, a great throne shattering under fire. The vision ended as quickly as it began. Milo gasped, sweat running down his face. He looked at the sarcophagus with new fear. He's not just a memory. He's alive in some way. Watching. Waiting. The colonists began to argue. Some demanded they flee, others wanted to record everything for proof. But Milo raised his hand. "Quiet," he said firmly. "This place is not finished with us. The king knows we are here, and he's not letting us leave until we understand his curse." The sarcophagus pulsed once with pale light, as if agreeing. The metal bands tightened slightly, creaking like old wood. The whisper came again, softer this time, almost like a promise. "You have opened the path. Soon, my prison will break. And when it does, you will stand before me." The lamps flickered violently before stabilizing again. The whisper faded, but the heavy presence in the room remained. The explorers stood frozen, breathing hard. None dared move. At last, Nora whispered, "Milo, what have we done?" Milo did not answer. His eyes stayed locked on the glowing sarcophagus. Deep down, he already knew. They had not just discovered a tomb. They had awakened something far greater, something that would not rest again. The silence in the chamber was so deep that every breath sounded like thunder. The explorers stood frozen, staring at the sarcophagus wrapped in twisting metal bands. Each second felt stretched, heavy, as though the tomb itself was waiting for something. Milo stepped forward, unable to resist the pull of the strange presence pressing into his mind. His hand trembled as he reached out toward the glowing surface. Nora grabbed his wrist. "Don't," she whispered urgently. "If you touch it, you may set it free." Milo looked at her. "It already knows we're here. Hiding will change nothing." Before Nora could reply, the sarcophagus shuddered. The metal bands pulsed with light, cracking as if they were alive. A low rumble shook the chamber, and dust rained down from the ceiling. The colonists shouted in fear, some falling to their knees. A line of light split across the sarcophagus lid. The glowing crack spread wider until it stretched from one end to the other. With a deep groan, the stone lid shifted. Cold mist poured out, curling across the floor like smoke. The temperature dropped so quickly that their breaths turned into white clouds. Bryn raised his lantern, his face pale. "The curse, it's breaking." The mist swirled and rose higher, taking shape. A tall figure formed out of the fog, growing solid before their eyes. Armor made of stone-like plates covered his body, each piece etched with runes that glowed faintly. His eyes shone like burning stars, piercing the darkness. He was taller than any human, his presence filling the chamber with power and weight. The explorers gasped. Some backed away, but Milo stood frozen. He could not look away. The figure spoke, his voice deep and echoing. Who wakes me from silence? The words thundered inside their heads, yet his mouth barely moved. His gaze fell on Milo, as if he already knew who had dared to call him. Milo forced himself to speak, though his voice shook. We are explorers. We found your tomb. We didn't mean to disturb you. The king's eyes narrowed. You are human. I know the shape of your kind. Too soon you return. Too soon. Nora stepped in front of Milo, gripping her lamp tightly. If you are truly a king, then tell us who you are. Why are you here? Why do you call this place cursed? The figure tilted his head, studying her as if she were a curious child. Then he spoke again, slower, each word heavy with memory. I am the one they feared. I ruled worlds beyond count. I sought unity, not destruction. But my enemies betrayed me. They spread lies of curses and shadows. To protect what I built, I sealed myself within stone. I slept until the worthy would come. The chamber seemed to tremble with each word. The colonists whispered among themselves, too frightened to step closer. Milo swallowed hard. What do you mean by worthy? The king's burning eyes locked on him. Those with courage to face me. Those who seek truth over fear. Those who dare to wake the forgotten. As he spoke, the mist thickened, wrapping around the chamber. Images formed in the air, fleets of ships in the sky, armies of humans and aliens standing together, a throne made of black crystal shining with light. The images shifted to fire and ruin, worlds burning, soldiers falling, the king himself struck down by betrayal. The visions vanished, leaving only the cold silence. The king's voice dropped, filled with sorrow. I remained in chains so that my enemies could not destroy all. Yet the galaxy has forgotten my name. Tell me, human, has the age of betrayal ended, or does it still burn? Milo could barely breathe. He felt the weight of the question pressing on his chest. I don't know. Humanity has grown, but we still fight among ourselves. We are not perfect. But maybe we can learn. The king studied him in silence. Then he raised one massive hand, and the sarcophagus behind him sealed itself shut once more. The broken metal bands twisted and repaired, though weaker than before. You speak with honesty, the king said. That makes you different from liars who cast me into shadow. I will not harm you. But know this: my prison is fading. Soon, I will rise again, whether your kind is ready or not. The colonists shivered. Bryn fell to his knees, muttering prayers. Nora clenched her fists, her eyes locked on the towering figure. If you rise, what will you do? Rule us? Destroy us? The king's glowing eyes softened slightly. I will test you. If humanity is strong, I will stand with you. If humanity is weak, the stars will burn once more. His body began to fade, turning back into mist. Only his eyes remained, twin points of fire in the darkness. His final words echoed through their minds. Prepare yourselves. The curse is not mine alone, it is now yours as well. The mist sank back into the sarcophagus, and the chamber fell silent. The glow of the carvings dimmed, leaving only the faint light of their lamps. The explorers stood motionless, their breaths loud in the cold air. Nora whispered, "He's real. The king is real." Milo's hands shook, but his eyes burned with determination. And he's not finished with us. The air in the chamber grew heavy after the king's form faded. The explorers stood in silence, each of them shaken by what they had witnessed. The glow from the walls dimmed to a faint shimmer, yet the presence of the king lingered, as if the very stone remembered his voice. Nora turned to Milo, her face pale. We have to leave. Whatever this curse is, We don't belong here. Bryn nodded quickly, clutching his lantern. She's right. The dead should not speak, and kings should not rise from stone. If we go now, maybe we can still escape. But Milo shook his head. His eyes remained fixed on the sealed sarcophagus. If what he said is true, then we cannot just walk away. He was not just a king of men, but of worlds. That means his story is part of our history too. Don't you see? Humanity may have been tied to him long before we even knew the stars. The others murmured uneasily, but none could deny that the discovery was too great to ignore. Still, fear weighed heavier than wonder. Nora stepped closer to Milo, lowering her voice. You heard him. He spoke of a curse. If his prison breaks, then something dangerous will come with it. He wasn't asking us for help, Milo, he was warning us. Before Milo could answer, the ground beneath them shook. A deep grinding sound echoed through the chamber. From the walls, hidden panels slid open, and strange machines crawled out. They were tall, insect-like constructs of black stone and metal, their bodies covered in the same glowing runes that had shone on the king's armor. Their many legs scraped against the floor, and their single crystal eyes glowed with sharp red light. Bryn cried out and stumbled back. Guardians. He left guardians to keep him locked away. The machines moved in unison, circling the explorers. Their eyes fixed on the humans, and beams of red light scanned their bodies. The runes on their carapaces pulsed brighter, and a low hum filled the chamber. Nora raised her lamp like a weapon, though it was useless. They're going to attack. Milo stepped forward, trying to keep his voice steady. Wait. If the king trusted us enough to speak, maybe the guardians will too. The machines halted for a moment, as if considering. Then one of them spoke, its voice metallic and layered. Unworthy intruders. The seal must remain. The curse must not break. Before Milo could reply, the nearest guardian lunged. Its legs struck the ground with sharp cracks, and its glowing limbs slashed through the air. The team scattered, their lamps swinging wildly. Nora pulled Milo aside just in time, the creature's strike slamming into the floor where he had stood. Sparks flew as stone cracked. Bryn and the others rushed for the entrance, but the way out sealed itself with a heavy wall of stone, trapping them inside. Milo's heart raced. They had no weapons, no defenses. Run to the side walls, he shouted. Stay moving. The guardians pursued, their movements sharp and relentless. Yet in the chaos, Milo noticed something strange. The machines never struck the sarcophagus. Every attack avoided the sealed tomb, as if their only purpose was to protect it, not to destroy it. Nora noticed too. They're not here to kill the king. They're here to stop anyone from freeing him. The machines closed in, their red eyes glowing brighter. Just as the explorers were about to be overwhelmed, a deep voice thundered inside their minds. It was the king again. Stand! The guardians froze mid-strike, their limbs locked in place. The glowing runes on their bodies flickered as if caught between two commands. The king's voice filled the chamber. You test their patience, guardians. But these humans have awakened me, and they shall hear the truth. The machines lowered their legs, retreating to the edges of the chamber like obedient soldiers. Their red eyes dimmed, though they continued to watch the explorers closely. Milo gasped for breath, his chest heaving. He stopped them. Nora turned toward the sarcophagus. Then why set guardians at all, if he wanted us to hear him? The king's voice answered, calm but heavy with meaning. Because not all who enter my tomb come seeking knowledge. Many come for power, and power alone. The guardians are here to test. To see who fears and who endures. You have endured. The explorers stood in silence, the weight of his words pressing down on them. Milo finally spoke. You said the galaxy betrayed you. You said you placed a curse on yourself. Why? The king's voice grew softer, yet it carried sorrow. I sought to unite the stars under one banner. Human and alien, hand in hand. But my enemies feared what we could build together. They struck me down, twisted my name, and spread whispers of curses to frighten the weak. I sealed myself so that their lies would not consume all. But in sealing myself, I chained my strength. My curse is not only mine, it now binds those who awaken me. The explorers exchanged uneasy looks. Bryn whispered, "He means us. We are tied to his fate now." Nora's hands tightened on her lamp. If his enemies still exist, if his wars still linger, then we have just painted a target on humanity. The king's presence pressed harder into their minds. Choose now, humans. Leave, and the guardians will let you flee, forgetting what you have seen. Stay, and you carry my burden. My curse will become your path. And the stars will judge if you are worthy. Milo looked at Nora, then at the others. Their faces showed only fear, but in his chest burned a spark of something different, hope mixed with dread. He turned back to the sarcophagus. "I will stay," he said firmly. "If humanity was once part of your story, then we cannot run from it now." The chamber grew still. The king's voice rumbled with approval. "Then prepare yourself, herald of the forgotten. The curse has chosen you." The chamber stayed heavy with silence after the king's words faded. The explorers stood close together, the glowing guardians watching from the shadows. None of them dared speak, until Nora finally broke the silence. "Milo," she whispered, "do you understand what you've done? You just accepted a curse." Milo's heart pounded, but his voice was steady. "I didn't choose the curse. It chose us the moment we opened the tomb. If we run, it will follow us anyway. The only way forward is through." Bryn shook his head, his face pale. "No. The only way forward is to survive. And survival means leaving this place behind." Before more words could be said, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The walls of the chamber shifted, breaking apart and sliding into new shapes. The glowing runes pulsed brighter, casting long shadows across the room. The king's voice thundered again. "If you are to bear my curse, you must prove your worth. The tomb itself will judge you." The explorers looked around in panic as the floor split into separate paths. Stone bridges rose from the darkness below, forming a maze that stretched into the unseen depths. At the end of each bridge, faint lights glimmered, calling them forward. Nora gripped Milo's arm tightly. "It's a trial. He's forcing us to play his game." Milo nodded grimly. "Then we play, and we survive." The group stepped onto the nearest bridge, their footsteps echoing across the stone. The air grew colder as they advanced, and the walls shimmered with faint images. Faces appeared in the stone, watching them with hollow eyes. Some looked human, others alien, but all were carved with expressions of sorrow. Bryn muttered under his breath, "These are his victims. Those who tried before us." Halfway across the bridge, a sudden crack split the stone. A gap opened beneath their feet, dropping into a dark pit with no bottom. One of the colonists screamed and nearly fell, but Milo caught his arm and pulled him back just in time. The king's voice echoed again. "Strength is not enough. You must trust one another. Alone, you will fall. Together, you will endure." They pressed forward carefully, helping one another across the gaps until they reached the far side. There, a new chamber opened before them. Unlike the first, this one glowed with light from crystal pillars that reached the ceiling. At the center stood 3 stone doors, each marked with a different symbol: a flame, a sword, and an eye. Nora studied the doors. "It's a choice. Each one leads to a different trial." Bryn groaned. "More tests? How many of these do we have to face?" Milo stepped closer, examining the symbols. His instincts pulled him toward the door with the flame. "This one," he said. The king spoke of fire in the visions. Maybe it's the path he wants us to take. The others followed reluctantly. As they entered, heat washed over them. The chamber was filled with rivers of molten rock, glowing red and spitting sparks into the air. Narrow paths of black stone stretched across the lava, barely wide enough for a single person to walk. The explorers hesitated at the edge. Nora's voice shook. "If we fall here, there's no saving anyone." Milo took the first step. The stone burned hot beneath his boots, but it held firm. "Stay close," he called. "Don't look down. Focus on the path." One by one, they crossed. The heat scorched their lungs, and sweat poured down their faces. The air shimmered with waves of fire. Suddenly, a roar echoed from the molten rivers. From the lava rose creatures shaped like serpents, their bodies made of fire and ash. Their glowing eyes locked onto the humans, and they slithered onto the narrow paths. Bryn shouted in terror. "They're coming straight for us." The team panicked, stumbling on the thin stone. But Milo stood firm, raising his voice. "Hold your ground. Remember what the king said. Together, we endure." The first serpent lunged, flames bursting from its mouth. Nora swung her lamp, smashing it into the creature's head. To their surprise, the serpent shrieked and broke apart into sparks that faded into the air. Milo realized the truth. They're not real. They're part of the test. Stand strong and fight. Encouraged, the others followed his lead. They swung their tools, their lamps, even their bare fists. Each strike broke the fiery creatures into bursts of light. Slowly, the serpents disappeared, one after another, until the chamber grew quiet again. The explorers stood panting, their bodies shaking from fear and heat. Yet none of them had fallen. Together, they had survived. At the far end of the path, another stone door appeared. This one opened on its own, revealing a cool passage beyond. The molten rivers dimmed, and the serpents vanished completely. Milo turned to the others, his face determined. "The trial is not meant to kill us. It's meant to test us. To see if we can face fear without breaking apart." Nora nodded slowly, though her eyes still carried doubt. "But how many more trials wait ahead? And what happens if we fail even one?" The king's voice answered from the shadows, deep and commanding. "Failure means death. Success means burden. You walk the path of the cursed. Each step binds you closer to my fate." The explorers shared uneasy looks, but Milo kept his gaze forward. The passage ahead stretched into darkness, its end unseen. He knew there would be more trials, more dangers, and more choices. But deep in his chest, the spark of determination burned brighter. Whatever the tomb demanded, he would endure it. The passage stretched ahead like the throat of a sleeping beast. The explorers walked carefully, their footsteps echoing against the stone walls. Each of them carried the memory of the fiery trial still burning in their minds. The heat, the fear, the serpents they had survived, but they knew the tomb was not done with them. Nora walked beside Milo, her eyes darting nervously. "It feels like we're being pulled forward," she whispered. Milo nodded. "Because we are. The king wants us to reach him. Every test is leading us closer to the heart of the tomb." The group pressed on. Strange carvings glowed faintly along the wall, scenes of battles long forgotten, of armies kneeling before a crowned figure. The images shifted as they walked, almost alive, showing the rise of a mighty ruler and his fall into darkness. Bryn muttered as he traced a figure with his eyes. "That's him. The Forgotten King. He ruled over everything here, until he lost it all." Suddenly, the passage widened into a vast chamber. The explorers stopped, stunned by what they saw. At the center of the chamber stood a massive throne carved from black stone. It rose high, like a mountain, draped in chains of gold and iron. Upon the throne sat a figure tall, armored, and cloaked in shadows. His crown was cracked, and his eyes glowed faintly like dying stars. The forgotten king himself. The explorers froze, hardly daring to breathe. The king's presence filled the chamber like a storm. The air grew heavy, pressing down on their chests. Even Bryn, who had wanted to leave from the beginning, fell silent. The king's voice rumbled through the chamber. You have walked my path. You have faced fire and shadow. Now you stand before me. Tell me, humans, why do you seek my tomb? No one answered at first. Nora lowered her eyes, fear choking her throat. Bryn clenched his fists, unsure whether to speak or flee. Finally, Milo stepped forward. His voice shook but carried strength. We came for knowledge. We came because the past matters. But now I see this is more than history. You're not just a king buried under stone. You're alive, in some way. And you're watching us. The king's hollow eyes glowed brighter. Alive, yet not alive. Bound by curse and duty. I remain while the ages turn to dust. My empire fell, my people vanished, but my burden endures. And now, so must yours. The words sent a chill through everyone. The king lifted a hand. The ground trembled. From the shadows, armored guardians rose, stone soldiers wielding spears and shields. They stood in silent ranks around the throne, their eyes burning like embers. Bryn gasped. He's going to kill us. But the king raised his voice again. No. They will not slay you. They will watch. For now comes the true trial, the choosing of the herald. The explorers looked at one another in confusion. Nora whispered, Herald. What does that mean? The king answered as though he heard her thought. One among you must bear my mark. The herald carries my curse beyond this tomb. The herald becomes my voice in the world of the living. The explorers recoiled at the words. None of them wanted such a fate. Bryn stepped back quickly. Not me. Never me. The king's burning gaze swept across the group before settling on Milo. You. You alone stood firm. You alone spoke. You alone carry the fire strong enough to bear my will. Milo's heart thundered. He wanted to protest, but the king's eyes held him frozen. He could feel the weight of destiny pressing down like chains. Nora cried out, stepping between Milo and the throne. No. He doesn't belong to you. He's just a man. You can't take his life away. The king's voice thundered, shaking the chamber. You misunderstand. The curse is not death. It is burden. He will live, but never free. Through him, my shadow will touch your world again. As he spoke, dark light swirled from his throne. It coiled like smoke around Milo, wrapping his arms, his chest, his forehead. Milo gasped as burning pain seared into his skin, etching symbols across his flesh. The mark of the herald. The others rushed forward, trying to reach him, but the stone guardians blocked their way. Nora pounded against their shields in desperation, shouting his name. Bryn stood frozen, horror filling his eyes. Milo fell to his knees, the burning symbols glowing like fire across his skin. His vision blurred, and he saw flashes: empires burning, armies kneeling, the king's endless march through time. He saw 1,000 years of sorrow pressed into his mind. And then it stopped. The pain faded. Milo gasped for breath, his body trembling. The dark light faded, leaving the glowing symbols burned into his flesh like tattoos. The king's voice spoke once more, softer now, but still carrying weight. It is done. The herald is chosen. Through him, I walk again. The guardians stepped back, their shields lowering. The chamber grew still, but the air still carried the weight of doom. Nora rushed to Milo's side, kneeling beside him. Her voice shook. Milo, are you all right? Speak to me. Milo raised his head slowly. His eyes glowed faintly, just for a moment, before fading back to normal. His voice was hoarse. I. I carry him now. His curse. His will. I don't know what it means, but it's inside me. The king leaned forward on his throne, his shadow stretching across the chamber. Leave this place, Herald. Leave, and carry my mark into your world. Your path has only begun. The throne room grew darker, the king's form fading back into shadow. One by one, the guardians sank into the stone until only silence remained. The explorers stood together, shaken and speechless. The trials were over, but a greater burden had been placed upon them. And Milo, marked as the herald of the forgotten king, knew his life would never be his own again. The air inside the tomb grew colder as the group moved deeper into the final chamber. The walls shimmered faintly with strange light, as if the stone itself remembered voices from the past. Aaron walked carefully, every step echoing like a drum beat in the silence. Lena stayed close, her eyes fixed on the glowing carvings that stretched across the chamber walls. Behind them, Tom carried the torch higher, trying to push back the shadows that crept from the corners. They all knew this was it. The last chamber. The place where the forgotten king was said to rest. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of history pressed down on their shoulders, and they felt as if the king himself was watching them. In the center of the room stood a great stone coffin, carved with symbols of power and warning. Around it were 4 statues of armored warriors, each holding a spear. Their eyes, made of polished gems, glowed faintly in the torchlight. "This feels different," Lena whispered. "Not like the other traps or puzzles. This is something else. Something alive." Aaron nodded slowly. His instincts told him the same. This was not just a chamber of stone and dust. It was a test. He stepped closer to the coffin. The air grew heavy, and a voice spoke. It was deep, ancient, and filled with command. The voice did not come from any mouth, but from the very walls and air around them. "Who dares disturb the rest of the forgotten king?" The 3 froze. The statues shifted, stone grinding against stone, as if waking from a long sleep. Their spears pointed forward, aimed directly at the intruders. Aaron swallowed hard but did not back away. He raised his hand slowly and spoke with steady courage. "We are seekers of knowledge. We came not to steal, but to understand. The world has forgotten you. We want to remember." The chamber went silent again. The glowing eyes of the statues burned brighter. The voice returned, colder this time. "Many came before you. They spoke of honor, of memory, yet they only sought power. Why should you be different?" Lena stepped forward now, her voice clear and honest. "Because we do not want power. We want truth. If your story dies, then your name dies. Let us carry it. Let us show the world who you were." For a moment, the statues lowered their spears slightly. The air shifted, almost like a sigh. But the test was not over. "Then prove it," the voice commanded. The floor beneath them cracked, revealing glowing lines of energy. The chamber shook, and a shape rose from the coffin. It was not flesh, but a spirit made of light and shadow. The forgotten king stood before them, tall and proud, his form flickering with golden fire. He carried no weapon, but his presence alone filled the room with strength and fear. Aaron's knees weakened, but he forced himself to stand tall. The king's burning eyes studied him. "You are human. Fragile. Small. Yet you stand here as if unshaken." "Why?" the king asked. Aaron took a deep breath. "Because truth is worth the fear. Because we are not small if we choose to carry great stories. You are not forgotten if we remember." The king's eyes flickered. His spirit seemed to shift, as if battling between anger and calm. He raised a hand, and suddenly Aaron felt his chest burn with heat. Visions flooded his mind. He saw battles from centuries ago, kingdoms rising and falling, betrayal among allies, and the king's final stand. He felt the weight of sorrow, the pride of victory, and the pain of being erased from history. When the vision ended, Aaron dropped to his knees, gasping. Lena and Tom rushed to his side, but he lifted a hand weakly. "I am fine. I saw him. I saw it all." The king's voice rumbled again. "And what will you do with what you have seen?" Aaron forced himself back to his feet. His voice was rough but steady. "I will tell your story. I will make sure no one forgets again." The king studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, the glowing fire around his form dimmed. The statues lowered their spears fully and became still once more. The chamber no longer felt heavy with anger. Instead, it carried a calm, solemn peace. "You speak with truth," the king said at last. "Then take my blessing. Carry my name. Let the world know the forgotten king was not lost, but remembered through those who dared to seek." The spirit slowly dissolved into golden dust, which swirled around Aaron before fading into his chest. He felt warmth inside him, not heavy, but steady like a flame that would never go out. The chamber grew still. The carvings on the walls dimmed, and silence returned. But this time, it was not the silence of death. It was the silence of peace. Aaron turned to Lena and Tom. His eyes burned with determination. "We must write it all down. Every word, every vision. The world must know." Lena smiled faintly, her eyes wet with tears. "Then we will. Together." Tom lowered the torch, nodding with pride. "The curse is broken. The king rests, and his name lives again." The three of them walked back toward the entrance, carrying not treasure of gold, but something far greater. They carried memory, history, and the story of a king who would no longer be forgotten. As they stepped into the light of the outside world, the tomb sealed itself behind them with a final rumble. But in Aaron's heart, the voice of the king still echoed, not as a curse, but as a gift. The story of the forgotten king had returned to the world. And with it, the promise that no truth, no matter how buried, would ever stay hidden forever.